good morning to all of you. Now I'm switching to English because our next guest is Nickie Smith. We are very glad to welcome you to the Inspiration Days. Very glad you made it. We have to say that now for us it is in the morning, but for Nickie it is late at night because she's in a different time zone. She is in the United States, and therefore, how late is it? Hello, Nickie.
Hello. Well, I can say it's good morning here. It's 12:15, so quarter past midnight.
Quarter past
Um,
midnight.
yes, but good morning to you. It's lovely to
Thank
be
you.
here with you today.
Thank you. We are so glad to welcome you to the Inspiration Days and glad to also have a talk in English. Your mother tongue is English, and therefore the whole webinar will be in English. And I also welcome Verena. She is a high school student. Good morning also to you.
Hi.
She will be conducting kind of an interview, or she will be having a talk with Nickie. Because as we will later also hear, Nickie is also very involved with youngsters. Let me just give a quick introduction to Nickie Smith before we go on to the interview. Nickie Smith is a global marketing and talent development executive. She has over 30 years of experience with different companies. She is also active internationally, so she has worked with different cultures, different companies from all over the world, and she has also worked with very successful tech giants, like to name some of them, IBM, Expedia, and Microsoft. And she's also been very involved in driving on for social and cultural change. And this is also something she put forward in Microsoft. She has always been there to work on diversity, on parity, and therefore she also had the vision to found a non-profit organization. It is called Be Bold for Change, and she is until now the president of this organization. And I am also very glad that we will be maybe hearing more of this organization also later. But without further ado, I give the word to Verena, and I'm very glad that we can hear something from Nickie Smith. Thank you.
So the first question is, why did you decide to be part of the Inspiration Days in South Tyrol?
Well, hi, Verena. Nice to see you again. Well, it's an offer I could hardly refuse. I love having the opportunity to share my experience with students in particular. I had the good fortune to be inspired and given guidance by mentors as I grew up, from teachers and other adults and people in my career. And I love the opportunity to be able to pay that forward. So I'm really excited to be with you here today and to share my story with you all.
Who is Nickie Smith?
Oh, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, I am a mother. I have two boys, Max, who's 18, and Jack, who's 23, and I'm married. I am from the UK and lived there most of my life until about 10 years ago when I relocated to the US. I now live in the Pacific Northwest, just outside of Seattle on the west coast of the US. I've been a marketing professional for the majority of my career. In the latter half, I became more involved in talent development because it was a big passion of mine, and became a certified coach. I also have been an advocate for diversity and inclusion along the way. That is a big area and big focus for me. And because of that, I founded a non-profit with a friend of mine called Be Bold for Change, as Marley's talked about. And that really is about helping people build more an equitable world for everybody, and that is very dear to my heart.
Share a career story that shaped you.
Well, one of the most proudest days of my career was probably in the mid-2000s. I worked at Microsoft, and in a junior role. I was a PR manager for Europe, and part of my role was to look after the reputation of Microsoft. And at that time, it was relatively early in the internet days, and we had a couple of services, MSN Messenger and MSN chat rooms. And it was still very early. People used them for sharing messages and chatting together live online. But it was in the early days of the internet. There wasn't a lot of safeguards or protection for people. And myself and the product manager became rather concerned about what actually was happening in these chat rooms. It was sort of inappropriate behavior and conversations. And we were concerned that adults were preying on minors, pretending to be young people. And in the newspapers, the stories there were stories of young people actually meeting the people that they'd met online and finding out that they weren't young people like them, that they were adults. And so we escalated this to our leadership. And at the time, this was becoming quite a good source of advertising revenue for the company, good business. And but we spoke to them, we shared our concerns, and we pressed upon them that this revenue was coming at a cost of the safety of young people. And so eventually we were able to get the company to take the decision to shut them down. We could not at that time keep those spaces safe for young people. That day I learned the value of my values. It was a day where I really realized what was important, and that was about being purposeful, supporting justice, fairness, equality, and safety for everyone. And I found my voice to stand up for others. And since that day, I've learned the importance of advocating for others. And I've started multiple advocacy groups for women and girls in particular, both inside work and outside. And I most recently started a group called Be Bold Girls. We set up this group of young women who are 13 to 18, and they asked us to help them design a program to help them use their voice and advocate for themselves, to change some of the things that they didn't think were fair and equitable in their schools and in their community. And we're emboldening them and equipping them to become change makers themselves, to design the change that they want to see. And so, my experience has now led me to help others do the same and stand up for themselves and others.
Okay. What were some of the biggest challenges?
I was thinking about this question, and some of the biggest challenges have ended up being some of the biggest gifts and the biggest opportunities in my career. I remember I had this new manager, and we were just about to launch an email service. It was Hotmail, which is now, of course, is quite an old email service, but at the time it was brand new in the UK. And we were very excited. We were going to do a big advertising campaign in the newspapers, online, outdoor media, on TV. It was going to be a big marketing campaign. And then my manager suddenly left. He got promoted to a new job, and I didn't have a manager. And he just gave me this marketing campaign, and he said, "Here, run with it." And at the time I was quite junior, wasn't very senior. And I remember feeling quite anxious and terrified, I think, probably. But in the end, took this challenge on and ended up launching a wonderful campaign, which was very exciting, and it went on to win industry awards. And, you know, what I learned from that is sometimes when people give you something that seems so big and you feel like you just can't cope with it, if you just step in and embrace the opportunity, it's amazing what will come from it. Another challenge came from when I relocated with my family from the UK to the US. You know, at the beginning, in the first year, it's exciting. You know, we came to Seattle and there's mountains and there's lakes and there's beautiful scenery, and the boys were really excited, and I loved what I was doing with my job. And then after a year, the boys started having trouble at school, and, you know, it felt like things weren't going to turn out quite the way we had hoped. But we stuck with it, and now we are extremely happy. We love living here amongst the mountains and the lakes in the Pacific Northwest, and we're here to stay. And the boys love it too, and one of them is now gone to college, and the other one is out working, and we couldn't be happier. So I'd say, you know, some of the biggest challenges will turn into the biggest opportunities. Another part of my career has been challenging the status quo, breaking through the glass ceiling to reach executive positions. I worked in the media and advertising industry. It was very male dominated, particularly at the senior levels. And so I co-founded women's organizations, so where we could come together and lobby for change, lobbying for equal career opportunities, equal pay, for flexible working conditions, because many of us were working mums and we wanted a career, but we also wanted to raise a family. And then also to fight, unfortunately, to stop sexual harassment in the workplace. And, you know, again, those challenges made me step up and use my voice and fight for change. And that was a great experience. And then that gave me the confidence to do more and fight for equality, for not just for myself, but for others too.
That's great. What advice would you give to young people dealing with bias and non-inclusive behavior?
Well, I'd first say find a mentor, someone you can trust, someone who can provide you great advice and can help you manage difficult situations, whether it's at school, in your community, or college, or workplace. First start there. And then speak to others who feel the same as you. Often when you start sharing your stories, you'll realize that you're not alone. Other people are experiencing the same thing or concerned about the same things. Join a group. If there isn't one, start one. Find a safe space so you can share your experiences, discuss them, and discuss how you can challenge the status quo and how you can advocate for yourselves and your others. And others, whether, you know, wherever you are, school or college or at work. The other thing I would say is practice being allies for others. So a great example is if you're in a meeting or in a lesson or a class and you see someone talking over someone else, use your voice, be an ally and call it out and say, hey, I just want to invite Verena into the conversation because I noticed she's been really trying to share something and she's not getting a chance to speak. So can we invite her into the conversation? Or another example might be, you know, sometimes you voice an idea, you propose an idea and it doesn't get heard. And then somebody later on in that meeting or lesson has the same idea and it gets acknowledged. An ally what they would do is they would say, I just want to mention that Verena actually mentioned that idea earlier in the conversation. So why don't we actually ask Verena to share more on that idea? So, you know, being an ally, helping others, bringing others into the conversation, including them, and gently calling out bad behavior. Another point would be, if you see some inequality, try and get the data, try and get evidence to back you up. So, you know, ask questions. Is everybody getting paid the same for equal work? Is every voice being represented where decisions are made? Is everyone got the same access to education or health and other services? And if not, call it out. And where possible, come up with ideas, propose solutions, and take actions. And then one other thing I would add is when you're thinking about equity and inclusion, think about designing solutions with the people you want to support. So you may have heard the expression design with, not for. So involve the people that you want to help. And an example I use here is the Microsoft's Adaptive Controller, which helped those with disabilities to play Xbox. So Microsoft worked with veterans and other people with disabilities to design the different controls, so extending the game, extending gaming to many more people. So now that when they can play as equals. They can play Forza, Minecraft, FIFA as equals because they now have this adaptive controller that they help design. So design with people, not for them. And then I love to quote John Lewis, who lobbied for racial justice with Martin Luther King. He talks about making good trouble. So that's what I'd encourage you all to do, is to make good trouble and stand up for yourself and others.
What is the significance of being a cultural change agent and advocate for diversity and equity?
Well, it's incredibly important to me because I believe it's our responsibility to create a fair and inclusive world where everyone's voice is heard and where everyone is valued equally. It's about giving every individual the opportunity to thrive regardless of their background. One of my heroes is Jane Goodall, the conservationist, and I love and quote her often. She says, "Every individual matters. Every individual has a role to play. Every individual makes a difference. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make." And she has this other quote, which I love, which is, "The greatest danger to our future is apathy." And I think many of us can sit on the sidelines and think that somebody else has got this, right? Somebody else is going to make the change we want to see. But actually, it's our collective responsibility to step up and make a difference. We just have to decide what kind of difference we want to make. So I'd also add it's great for business. You'll have seen many brands now that believe the purpose of business is not just to sell products and make money, but actually to make a positive impact on society. It is possible to align your business goals with a higher purpose, such as sustainability, social responsibility, and equality. And I believe we can vote with our purse, with our wallet, if we continue to buy products and services from brands that are responsible and purpose-led, then we're also making change happen in that way too. And for me, it's about using my skills and my experience to drive meaningful change and inspire others to do the same. So my purpose is to ignite change in others.
How did Be Bold for Change start?
Well, Be Bold for Change was a vision I had with a girlfriend 8 years ago. And we were sat down looking for an event to go to. It was International Women's Day. I'd moved to the US and I could not find an event to go to. And we decided that we would start one. And largely because we shared a vision about empowering and equipping individuals to close the gender gap and create a platform for change makers. And so every year we read the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report, and it was published in July of this year. And what it does, it measures the difference between men and women in 4 different categories: health and safety, education, employment, and political empowerment. You may be surprised to hear, unfortunately, that Italy is 79th place out of 146 countries. So this is a measurement report that's happened annually for 17 years, and it is measured across 146 countries, and Italy is currently 79th out of those 146 countries, and it's slipped, gone down 16 places since last year in 2022. And so we share that information because it's data and it's evidence and it's reliable information, because often people think that gender equality has been done and dusted. It's no need to worry about that anymore because that's all sorted. And so because of the World Economic Forum's reputation and the rigor in its research, we remind people that yes, a lot of great work has been done, but there's still more work to be done across the globe.
How would you describe Be Bold's annual intergenerational community event?
Yes, so the event that we started 8 years ago, which is, it's called Be Bold Now, and it's a celebration of what we say, ordinary women doing extraordinary things. And we celebrate the progress, but it also, we remind people of the work still to be done in terms of achieving gender parity. It's a space at a forum where people come together of all ages, and they share bold stories and inspire each other, network, connect, and we bring them together in unity of our mission. It's, as I mentioned, it's been going on in Seattle for 8 years now. We launched in London this March, which was very exciting. And next year we're going to be launching in Paris. And you never know, Verena, maybe one day we'll come to you too.
Yeah, that would be great. How can young people become change makers of the future, and why is it vital to educate them about gender disparities and inequalities?
Yeah, I think young people are extremely important in this mission to build a more equitable and sustainable future. With education about the disparities and inequalities that exist, knowledge is empowering. And so with that education, with that knowledge, that can give you the confidence you need, that gives you a better understanding of what the challenges are and where change needs to happen. As a result, you can become advocates, you can challenge the status quo, challenge the stereotypes that exist, and design solutions to break the norms, break the barriers, and to shape a more equitable future for yourself, for your peers, for your family, and for future generations. And what I want people to hear is and know, it's, you don't need to wait until you're my age to get started. It's really important for young people to understand that schools, governments, public and private organisations and brands, they want to hear your voice. They want to learn what's important to you, because if they don't change, they will become obsolete. You are the voters, consumers, employees, leaders of the future. These organizations, political parties, brands, and so on, need to know how to engage you, how to serve you going forward. Because if they don't, the political parties won't have any followers, the brands will have no fans, and the organizations will not be able to make money. So know that your voice is really important, and find a way to get educated and use your voice, your talent and agency to advocate for the change you want to see.
Are you proud of yourself?
I am proud of the impact I've been able to make over my life to date. I've still got much more good trouble to make, but my proudest moments actually come from witnessing the positive change in others. As a coach, as a manager, as a mother, as a friend, as a mentor, I get really inspired by seeing the people that I have helped in some way overcome their challenges and achieve great things. And that gives me an enormous sense of pride and fulfillment.
What is your wish for young people in the world today?
My wish for you all is to believe in yourselves, believe in the capabilities that you have and the potential you have to shape the world. I hope that you never settle for less than what you deserve, and you continue to challenge the status quo to create a more equitable and inclusive world. Fight for yourself, fight for others, be upstanders and not bystanders, and make good trouble.
Thank
Wow.
you.
These are so great last words. Thank you very much. Thank you to you both. Thank you, Nickie. Maybe we can have some minutes for some eventual questions. Some advice to you that now the Q&A is open. You can also write your questions into the chat. Ihr könnt auch gerne die Fragen auf Deutsch stellen und ich werde sie dann übersetzen. So you can also write the questions in German or Italian, and then I will try at least to translate them correctly. But talking maybe again also about the Be Bold community event. Nickie, can you maybe share some more detail about it? Because you said this year it was the first time in London. You're planning to have it in Paris. So how many people are there normally? What is the program? Are there already some details you can share with us about the event upcoming in Paris?
Yes, I can't tell you too much about Paris because we haven't got completed our plans yet. But I can tell you about the one we held in London. So it was for 200 people. And the stories we like to share are usually of women who have often faced adversity in their own lives and then gone on to do something amazing. And so I will tell you one story of a young woman. She was at college and she was talking with some friends about some sexual harassment experiences. And she realized that actually her peers had also had some experiences. And what they were talking about is that they realized that they hadn't had the opportunity to share them before. And it was more common. They felt like the only. And by sharing them, they realized that it was more common and it was helpful to share them. So she started a website. And it was called Everyone's Invited, where everyone could share anonymously what had happened to them. And what happened as a result of that, a lot of these experiences happened whilst the people were at school and at college. And what happened was the UK government was alerted and realised the scale of what was happening in the education system, and they launched some research amongst the education system, and then now put in practices and proper training and learning programs in the school to educate on what was appropriate behaviour, what's not appropriate behaviour, and so on. And so it was a young woman who was 21, 22, and she, just by sharing her story, encouraged others to share the story, realised that there was a need for change. And now she has a non-profit organisation that's invested in with grants from both the government and other public and private organisations, and she runs an organisation. She's 25 now, and she runs this organisation, delivering really valuable training to schools across the UK. Another one we had, I'll just tell you quickly, was a female footballer. She played internationally and then played for Arsenal. She used to play for Man City. And at the time, you know, women's football is getting bigger here in Europe, but over here in the US, it's a very big thing. But she used to play for, I think it was Man United, and they had great facilities for women. When she moved to Arsenal, they didn't have dedicated facilities for women. The women had to wait until the male footballers had finished in the gym before the women were allowed to go and use the gym and the ice baths and all the other facilities. And so she and her peers lobbied the management of the Arsenal football club and say, hey, if you want to play in the big girls league, you know, you're going to have to provide the facilities. And so they did. They have now built a separate facility for women with the right and appropriate standards of gym equipment and everything, all the facilities they need. So, you know, it goes to show that if you fight for what you believe in, you can get it.
Right. These are some great stories also to hear from very young women, how they made an active impact also. I think this is also very inspiring for us to maybe also take that step further. I see that we have a question. Let me read it out loud for you all. So the question is, in our region, often sexual harassment starts with allowing apparently innocent jokes, and kids hear them and get the idea that they are okay to tell. How can we change this fact that seems to be part of culture?
Yeah, that's a really, really important question and very common. And so the first thing is to not laugh at the joke, right? Because it's not funny. And so when somebody makes a joke like that, it's in a very gentle way is to say, you know, that's not really funny. Do you know how that makes me feel? When you say that, that makes me feel like this. And I think there's a lot of things that children hear at home, maybe hear from their parents or hear in their community or read online. And so it really requires people to stand up and say, that's not right. I don't like that. And this is how it makes me feel. And I would prefer it if you didn't say things like that. Yes, it's the way people also use language. If you don't like the way they say it, the best thing is to say, another way of saying that is. So I was talking to a young woman the other day, and she didn't like the way her boyfriend talked about her as property. You're my girl. You're and his friends were going, hey, there's your girl. And she said, I'm not yours. I am your, you and I are friends, but I'm not your property. I would prefer if you didn't talk about me in that way. And so it really takes courage to share how you feel, and then use it as a learning moment. And I would encourage open conversation and education. And if you are in school and it's happening in school, maybe to see if you can ask your teacher to actually have a conversation around it, because often it takes education, and some of these things are said without much thought because they've heard it from others and think it's funny, and they need to know that it's not funny and that it's harmful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is very important. Also, the question, it's in our region, like it's very rooted, like these things oftentimes are considered normal. Not only in Italy, we have a whole problem around this, that on the other side, women are being like they're very important, like the mamma in Italia is very, very important. But on the other side, we have oftentimes this sexual harassment going on, and also in our region, which is a very rural area. Also these, it's a system, it's very deeply rooted, and oftentimes it might be also difficult to recognize that there's a problem going on. And how you said is also very important in schools, that we get conscious about certain behaviors not to be okay, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's when you always get courage when you group together. And so I would encourage girls to group together and bring it up to a teacher or someone an adult who can say, this is happening. We would like to educate our peers and our male peers and the boys in our school that this is not okay. And there are quite a few resources online where you can go and find education plans and discussion plans, so that you can bring that into an education forum and make it a learning exercise. And so I would definitely encourage that. You can use days like, Women's History Month and International Day of the Girl and International Women's Day. Those are festivals and holidays that, are big points in the diary, which you can anchor any campaign around. But I would definitely say, don't accept that. It's not right. And find some adult mentors that can help you advocate for change.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, and I see that there came another comment came in, and the kids should have the courage to tell also their parents that this is not okay when it happens, and that they make such jokes. Education given on to the old generation. Yeah, that's right.
It's so true. It's so true. And I remember back in the day, my children going to school and learning about smoking being really unhealthy, which it absolutely is, right? And my husband was still smoking at the time, and he stopped because my sons came home and he said, you can't do that. That's not good for you. And children are very effective at teaching their parents about what's right and what's wrong. And things change over time. And so I would say absolutely, you can start at home, practice being courageous at home with people who care and love you, and then get their support and helping you bring that conversation to other parts of your life, if it's school, if it's your sports team, college, wherever.
Right, right. I also got another question in my private chat, which is related more to your professional career at Microsoft. Somebody asked, how did you get into Microsoft? How is the application process there? Which was also very interesting.
Well, it was a little while ago because I've just recently, I left there last year after 25 years, but I'll tell you a story. I did not get in. I was not successful the first time around. And so I share that because it was a company that I always wanted to work for. And when I clearly didn't perform well at the interview the first time around, or the job wasn't right for me, I didn't give up. And I went back and applied and interviewed again. So don't give up would be, one recommendation. Microsoft has internships, and they have a graduate program. So if you are doing a degree and you can apply to spend a year or a period of time. The time is different. In the US, it's a couple of months. In the UK, it's a year. Well, I did my business studies degree and I did my year out at IBM in the UK, but Microsoft has similar schemes in the UK and I think in other countries in around the world and in Europe, where you can apply to be an intern and you go and work in the business for a year. And I would say that is a great opportunity because you really work. You don't just sit there and attend meetings and follow people, managers around. Well, you actually get put to work. And you get to really understand what the organisation is about the culture, the different type of roles that you can be involved with, and then they also have a graduate scheme as well. So if you are successful as an intern, you can also be asked back to once you've finished your degree. And I do know that Microsoft is also looking at starting apprenticeships as well. I don't know how common they are yet in Europe. So those are for people who perhaps aren't able to go to college for any reason or university, maybe they can't afford to go, and Microsoft is starting to hire non-graduates as well. So if you go to their website, microsoft.com/jobs, I think it is, you'll get to see all the different jobs that you can do there. And I would tell you, I am not a technical person at all. I spent my entire career there in both marketing and learning and development. I wasn't a programmer or an engineer, so you don't have to have a degree in computer studies to work at organizations like Microsoft, Google, and others like them.
Yeah, so this is also great advice that we don't have to stop at the first attempt. So if it doesn't go well and you really like to get in there, like you said, Nickie, maybe at the first time around it wasn't the right position for you, but then you kept on going, you kept sending your applications, and then it worked out for you, and it worked out greatly, I'd say. So that's definitely some advice we'll also give you on the way. The last question, this is from my side. Can we maybe know what your plans are for your future? What are you planning to do? Are there some projects ahead or some ideas you'd like to work on?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, I am building out my non-profit. It's really important to me, having come from Europe, to expand the impact to more women and girls across the globe. And so I plan to further build out my organisation, the non-profit. And so that is very close to my heart, enabling others to become change makers, whether it's in school or college or in the workplace. So that's first and foremost. And second, I want to use all the great experience that I learned at Microsoft, IBM and Expedia to help other organisations, smaller to medium-sized organisations, where maybe they don't have all the amount of resources that the larger organisations have, so that I can take what I've learned in what I call the University of Microsoft, because it was such a very privileged experience that I gained there, and actually bring that to smaller and more medium-sized companies, so that they can learn and benefit from my skills and my expertise, so I can help them grow and be successful.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's great. Nickie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you that you shared your experiences, your ideas with us. It very much has been very inspiring to all of us. I thank also to you, Verena, that you have been part of the Inspiration Days, that you prepared the question for the interview and were the interviewer of Nickie. Thanks to you both. I wish you all the very best. Nickie, thank you also to have been participated so late, and I will say good night then to you.
Good night, and thank you both, Marlies and Verena. It's been an absolute pleasure, and to everyone online, I wish you a fantastic rest of your conference, and I wish you good night.
Thank you, Nickie. Good night. Tschüss,
Bye.
Verena. Danke. Bye bye.